This is Tim Minear, producer of TV's Angel,
and Bear Smith, writer for TV's Angle.
We didn't have the chicken foot guy, so that's actually my assistant John Gray on the floor, where the guy with the chicken feet was in the previous episode. I wanted this to be like a Western showdown with the camera rotating around. This was all done in cuts. Of course, we never really grabbed Angel with that thing.
Your assistant really does have chicken feet, doesn't he?
He does have the chicken feet.
Yeah, I thought that's why you cast him.
Well, he's plucked.
Yeah, well, obviously, and boneless. So
now,
he's got that going for him.
This was interesting. I had a huge amount of pages I had to shoot each day. So what I did was I shot every scene facing toward Angel first. And then I turned around and shot Holtz. So everything was out of context and out of order. It's called block shooting, and it confused the actors to no end. I got a little confused myself. Keith is very funny. He's a terrific actor. He plays Holtz, and he's got that great, low, scary voice that we actually make fun of on the show.
I made fun of that, actually.
In real life, he does not have a low, scary voice.
He doesn't have a gravelly voice in real life.
No, it's kind of a high-pitched voice.
Yeah.
And so he was very funny because he would be, I will have my revenge. Is this my mark? Maybe there would be a lot of that. And there were little marks all over the floor. He kept getting very confused. This is sort of standard Minear direction.
And you'll notice the Christ-like imagery of Angel up on the cross.
Yeah, there's a lot of Christ-like imagery in this
there's a lot of
episode.
Messiah imagery.
There's a lot of Christian imagery.
For a professed agnostic, there's a lot of...
there's a lot of Christian imagery. Yeah. This was on the crane coming down to Darla. See, now look, it is commentary for the blind. Welcome to Commentary for the Blind.
And there's the wonderful Julie Benz. Love Julie Benz.
This was an interesting location. It was found for the previous episode, and I had to spend 2 nights in it, and it reeked of urine.
And what did you call it, Tim?
This is Piss Alley.
Yes, Piss Alley.
This is commonly known as Piss Alley.
Which I hear got cut out of the Harry Potter books.
Yeah, Piss Alley, not in the Harry Potter books.
She went with Diagon instead.
And it really reeked, and it was infested with these giant rats. And
only the best for TV's Angle.
There's actually a very funny outtake of a 2-shot of Alexis and Charisma where they're trying to get through their lines, and suddenly she jumps practically out of frame and then says, "Did you see the size of that rat?" And then apparently it runs over Alexis's feet. So that was kind of funny. So a lot of this stuff was shot. This I had to shoot one particular night because she was in her vampire makeup, and then everything else you see in this scene was shot on a different night. So in fact, I shot that first, the shot of her in the vampire makeup first, which was the end of the scene, and then I had to go back and shoot the beginning of the scene. So I just got very confused as well. I'm sure the actors were confused. I was confused, and the rats seemed to be confused. And here's an interesting fact. When you pour bleach on piss, to try to clean up an alley, it just makes it worse.
You're like Martha Stewart for the Damned.
I really am. These are what we call the opening titles.
Yes. You might have seen them before.
This was Darla's big send-off. I have a particular love of Julie Benz and a particular love of Darla. I got to write a bunch of Darla episodes in season 2, and I felt it was only right that I should kill her. And the way we sort of came to this episode, we were discussing the beginning of the year and what we were going to do this year. And it's sort of legend now, but I made a dirty joke because Joss was saying, what can we do for the season, next season, can we bring Darla back in a box? Because the joke was that's what we did at the end of season 1. And I said, can we bring something back in Darla's box? And Joss said, in fact, we can. And
that's how Connor was born.
That's how the baby came about.
Yes.
Which, I thought worked great. And I just thought it would be such a great image to have her get staked. Because I wanted to stake Darla actually in season 2.
Yeah.
I wanted to stake her at the end of Reprise when Angel was having sex with her. I wanted, them to climax, him to stake her, and then to come up in vamp face and say, "Was it good for you?" Because the idea was, the hell did bonking Darla do to him? But we didn't go that direction. So I've wanted her to get staked for a long time. And another thing that I pitched was that Darla would come lurking at the top of season 3, and they're doing some construction outside, and she would just simply trip and fall on a scrap of wood and just disappear, and everyone would be like, "Did you hear a noise?" No?
Yeah.
And then they'd go back to whatever they're talking about.
We didn't do that either.
No, we didn't go that direction.
No,
we went a completely different direction.
Yes.
I just want to comment on what I'm seeing on the screen here, which is this great set that Stuart Black created for Holtz's cottage, and this little girl who was terrific.
Oh, she was fantastic.
I think she was actually from South Africa.
Really?
Yeah. And that's one of my favorite shots. I love the out of focus guy in the background. I really got to move around in the space a lot, and that was great. And I know that Skip was actually shooting episode 18 stuff on this set. Then, of course, I bullied my way in because I had to shoot my scenes too. And so this is actually one of the first things I shot for my episode. Coming up will be the very first thing I shot, which I will point out.
I await with bated breath.
This was interesting here. I'm looking over Holtz's right shoulder, and here he's looking left, which he should be. But I shot that backwards, and actually I had to flop that shot around. So that's backwards. And if you notice, suddenly the door is on his left, when really it would be on his right, which would be camera left. So that's all flopped around.
We have no
Isn't that
idea.
fascinating?
I think everybody, all the laymen, will be fascinated by your line jumping.
And they're probably riveted.
Not in the system.
A new player.
So actually what you can't see in this scene is that I'm right behind the door on the left. I was visiting Tim on the set that night.
Were you
when
there
he was
that
shooting
night?
This. Yes.
Oh, this night was a nightmare.
Yes, it was. Yes, this was the nightmare night. And
Yeah, it was a nightmare.
I was just on the other side of this wall, so you can't see me, but I'm there.
If the wall wasn't there,
Yes,
you'd
you would
see
be
her,
able to
and you'd
see
be
me.
like, who are those people in those director's chairs? Which you might find annoying.
Actually,
Okay, here comes the next piece of Christian imagery,
Yes.
which is Lila saying, they don't crucify here, it's too Christian.
I could never have been involved.
And then we cut to Angel
Cut to
in
Angel.
a crucifixion pose. And I got some criticism about that because, in fact, Christians didn't crucify. Romans did.
Right.
And it was a Jewish thing and blah, blah, blah. And my feeling is,
Thursday staff.
shut up.
I hear about all this.
It's kind of my feeling.
Tim deals with criticism very well.
No, well, I mean, I'm just thinking, it's like, look, after 2,000 years and the crucifix and the whole thing, here it comes. She says the line, too Christian, and then cut to, I'm Christ, and I'm like, in a thing. So, but my feeling is after 2,000 years, I think they own it. They've copyrighted it.
Yeah, I think so.
You know what
I
I'm
think
saying?
so. I think it's a motif with them.
The question becomes.
These scenes were interesting to write and to execute because basically, I needed to play a whole act of Holt saying, I have oh, look, there's my name. I have captured you, and now after 500 years, oh, there's my
There's your
name
name
again.
again.
After 200 years in a thing, I finally can kill you.
But I'm not
But
going
I
to.
won't. So that's always tricky. So I tried to get around that by having his vendetta be about not just Angel, but Darla.
Darla.
I'm sorry, that's a good shot.
That's a great shot.
That's a cool shot.
Tim likes it when the important stuff is out of focus in the background.
If you haven't noticed.
Yes, we find that's a very
Well, and I also like it when there's big heads in the foreground.
Yes,
Big
yes.
heads in the frame.
giant heads.
Giant heads.
Yes.
And I also sort of like that
Yes,
because
yes.
up comes the steak.
A lot from you.
But basically, David or Angel and Holtz having two completely separate conversations during the scene, which I thought I thought that worked out pretty well.
Yours will be destroyed.
And Angel never ever
Used in the service.
begging to be released,
No,
never
no.
saying you've got it all wrong, I've
Right.
changed,
No,
because
he
it
never
made him more
mentions.
noble.
Well, not only that, but he never mentions that he has his soul back.
For some
Holtz finds that out from Sajan later.
No, actually, yes, no, he finds out from Lila.
From Lila, and then
coming
talks
up.
about Sajan.
Right. And all this stuff. It actually,
Talks to
there was.
Sujan.
Holtz found out about the soul in the previous episode, in an early version of that episode, and then I went to Jeff and said, you know that cool scene where Holtz finds out that Angel has a
Yeah,
soul?
can I have that?
You really need to take that out of your
Yeah.
episode. But in fact, it needed to come
No,
in this
it was.
episode.
It was in the exact right place.
It made more sense here.
Yeah.
We're back in Piss Alley.
Now, see, this is the part where I was like, "Oh, can Wesley not wear his glasses more often?"
And now
Because
he's not wearing them.
Yeah, I know.
He's
Because we
apparently
made
had
him all cool and kick-ass.
he's had surgery. There was tons of stuff to shoot. I mean, we were there until sunup every time. And the fight that happened in this alley was like the last thing I shot at the last screaming second before the sun
And
came up.
didn't you have a thing about Darla talking to herself in the car? That wasn't planned. You just sort of picked that up, didn't you?
No, I wrote that. That's in
You
there.
did?
I wrote she's muttering to herself.
Oh.
And then I asked her to mutter.
Did you steal that shot from somewhere? I thought I remembered you saying something like that.
Actually, it's in the next piece when we come back.
Okay.
Doesn't anyone want to sit
This
down
is
here?
you broke your water broke in the
Yes.
back seat, which is why we're all sitting up front.
She looks
which
so
crass,
pathetic. I love
and
that.
yet I think funny.
Promise?
Very
I'm
funny.
going out of the car.
The other thing, I loathe these demons with the big rubber with the big rubber.
Yeah.
You know,
Tim-
it really look like pullover masks.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, you weren't too fond of these ones.
Rob Hall is the
Oh,
kick-ass
Rob Hall is the man.
effects
but,
makeup guy of all time, but.
But yeah, these were. But
Those
he was on very short notice for the episodes, wasn't he? I think so.
Oh, he's always on short notice. He does a great job
Yeah.
for us.
Yeah, but we called these the rubber-headed guys.
So really what you have here in Act 1 of Lullaby is it's more like an Act 4 of an episode than an Act 1.
Yes. Well, we got into the habit of doing that, of picking up the episodes exactly where we left off,
Yes.
and the first act of those episodes actually sort of wrapping up the episodes before.
Yeah, so basically I had to dispense with everything from the previous episode in this first act, and when we come back into Act 2 of this, it's sort of the downbeat exposition scene of here are our agendas that
Yeah.
you would normally have as the second or third scene of a first act. I mean, look at that. Is that a mask? And also, it never works when the demons are wearing, like, T-shirts.
I know. He's like, I'm a J. Crew kind of guy.
It just makes no sense.
Abercrombie and Fitch, anyone?
But, you know, it worked okay, because there's enough going on in this
Oh, and there
scene.
was the Darlila thing.
Oh, right, there was a thing. Yeah, it didn't work.
Yeah.
I had to cut it. I always love Holtz throwing the holy water.
Yes.
Lila. It cracks me up every time. To me, there's just something about Angel where we can do these sort of long, weird, labyrinthian scenes that just go on for pages. Now, normally I don't like a scene to go on for, 4 pages. That to me is a very long scene.
4 pages is a very long scene.
But
This ended up at, like, what, 7, 8?
this scene?
Well, no. I mean, altogether, this scene that we're cutting back and forth from.
Well, I mean, that's the trick, is that I broke it up into pieces and jumped forward and back. I upcut deeper into the scene by cutting away to Wesley. In fact, these are all different scenes, because this is a new
Right.
scene because Lila has entered
Right.
the scene. Now, this I didn't think we could actually make work. I think it works great, which is
What does she mean, cursed by
Angel
Long story.
getting the hand grenade
Right,
and kicking
right.
it up into his mouth. And on the day when I was shooting with David, this is an insert shot by a second unit crew later.
Allow you to leave.
That's a piece of footage stolen, not really David's point of view.
You said you work for
This is an insert again.
I'm a lawyer. I don't care.
And when the thing comes up to David's mouth, it was on a wire going backwards. And that close shot of it in his teeth right here, that's not David.
Yeah, that's not him.
That's our second unit stand-in. And then he goes through I mean, it's ridiculous. It's a Wile E. Coyote moment of, there's a vampire shaped hole.
Yes,
That
yes.
this elevator was from the apartment that we shot on the roof of.
Really?
Yeah, I just grabbed that when we were there.
Oh, that was a great shot. I actually like Lila's hair like that. Is that wrong?
I think it's a little wrong.
And yet it feels so right.
I thought all this stuff just played great.
It did.
I was very happy with it. And I think Holtz and Lila together are just stellar.
I do too. I thought they were a really interesting combination.
Yeah,
I was,
and we
I
didn't
was
do
fascinated watching them.
We
on
didn't do
screen.
much with them.
No,
together.
we didn't. I think only this and
She too been.
that was really it, wasn't it? And the scene right before Kortov. Right
Yeah.
before he jumps in the hole.
Could be.
I think those are the only two.
Where they actually interacted.
Yeah.
I really like them together in this scene, and I really love the way it's lit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ross Berryman, our director of photography, who is new to us this year, really brought something to the show. I think the show actually got darker. If
Yeah, I
anything.
think so too.
And I think that's good. This was a huge day with giant amount of page count. This is me as the director now speaking. Directing, by the way, so much more fun than writing.
Yes.
Writing
yes.
is just like I sit there in my own stink.
Yes.
And I'm just like, what did they have to say? I
But
think.
wait, could you please make it sound more attractive for them?
Now this fight, again, I shot one side of the fight. I'm like, okay, we can go home now. They're like, you didn't shoot the other side. I'm like, oh crap. So basically, the way I had my editor cut this was to make it basically keep cutting back to her, muttering to herself in the car, so that I didn't have to worry so much about
Maybe-
the logistics or the geography of what
Right.
was happening battle-wise.
Right. Maybe that's what I was thinking of. You were stealing stuff from that other scene and putting it in here.
No, it was from the scene. It was just I was basically
Maybe I just think
milking
you
it.
steal a lot. And,
do steal.
and-
So she hits the guy here, and then we put the car on sandbags for that bump, And now if you'll notice, there's no demon
There's
there.
no demons anywhere
And it's
in the
because I
alley.
didn't shoot the bump until later. I shot the high shot first, and I thought she was going to hit him with the car and he'd fly out of frame, but that never happened. And I still feel like I shot this wrong.
What are we
But
looking at?
it's still funny.
How were you going to shoot it?
Well, unfortunately, I put it on, I think it's on the crane or something. And it
Is
should
it because it pulled up to get that shot of her in the car?
Yeah, it was a thing. It should have been on the dolly.
1700s. Yeah.
This is, your basic downbeat exposition
Right.
scene. But again, I really like the way he's lit this alley. I think it's interesting. And what I try to do is, get a variety of sizes, a variety of, a two-shot here with these two, cover some of the others in singles, and then
I don't think he knows about it.
because I can't block it so elaborately that I have to cover 5 actors, that I'll try and put 1 or 2 special shots into a scene like this, and here's one coming up, where I knew I wanted to drop back
Right.
and have Fred walk up and be short-framed here, large in the foreground with her back to everybody. So that just gives it some visual
Right,
variety, so
right.
you're not just cutting
Right.
back and forth between close-up, 2-shot, over, 2-shot.
Rice.
Rice. But I think this all worked pretty well. And everyone's getting their agendas down. The first time I cut this episode, I moved all the scenes around out of order from the script.
I could find her a lot faster on my own.
Because Angel walks out of this scene and we don't see him again until
Right,
the
right.
roof scene with Darla. And I
Right.
thought, oh no, that can't be right. So I never actually saw this thing put together the way I had written it and couldn't figure out why Act 2 was moving so strangely.
And then you put it back the way it was written?
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
in a way that I'd never seen it before.
See, it's what we tell, some of the directors. It's follow the instructions.
No, yeah,
The script or the instructions.
I
And
agree.
Tim, on the other hand, decided to forego that,
Yes.
strike out on his own.
No, that happens.
But-
I mean, I experiment a lot with restructuring and sort of rewriting in the editing room. I did the same thing on Darla last year. When I was cutting Darla, there was a moment when I was in the editing room where I saw that she had the phone to her breast when she was on the phone with Angel. And I thought, wouldn't it be cool if he could hear her heartbeat?
Yeah.
Since that's what this story is about. And so I went back and got a closer insert of a photo double holding the phone close to her heart and cut that in, and I think it really added a lot to the
I do
scene.
too. I do too.
But that was not a thing I planned until I actually saw what I had
Right.
shot.
In yellow.
This is, your basic second unit
Can you translate it?
scene that I shot.
And this is pointing up one of the cliches we noticed we had created was Lila threatening a person. I'll kill your children. I'll eat your skull.
Well, we
I'll-"
were trying to come up with something that was, snappier than "I'll have your family killed,"
Right.
because it seemed generic.
Right.
But considering the theme of the show and the fact
Right,
that it's
right.
Holtz and his family and Angel and his, possible family, it actually felt like the right line.
No, it is the right line.
The right line for the right job is what it felt like. I thought that guy was really funny.
Yeah.
This scene I had about an hour to shoot. A lot of this was 2 cameras. And I came in all panicked and said, okay, here's the blocking. You guys will walk in and you'll both sit down. And one of you will be sitting here and the other guy will be sitting here, and I'll pull back and it'll look like a lover's quarrel. Which I was trying to convince, because actors, they just want to use the space. They want to
Right,
walk around this
right.
giant thing,
Right.
and suddenly you're there for 6 more hours covering every footstep that they've made. So I was trying to simplify this as much as I could, and it turns out to be one of Joss's favorite scenes. He's like, I just love the way you stage that, and it was completely out of desperation.
Yeah. I think this was the scene where I really sort of fell in love with Sajan as a character.
Sajan's good in this.
Because he was just so dry and
Yeah.
what's the line he says? A little bit of ethical. What was that line?
You're
Ethically speaking.
Oh, ethically speaking,
That's what it
right.
was. It was ethically speaking,
Right,
which I
right.
just thought was so funny coming out of this guy with a face like that.
and I also liked him saying, it's the same guy. He's using product.
Yeah,
His
yeah.
hair's shorter, spikier. He's
Yeah.
using product,
He's using product.
which I thought was fun.
Have never been clearer.
This actually works for me coming up. I mean, this is all you need, right? You got
Yeah.
something wide. You cover the, cover it in a couple different sizes, the closer shots. But this I really liked, with him sitting and Holt standing. I just think that's very funny for some reason. Why does that strike me as funny?
Well, maybe because Sajan is incorporeal and shouldn't actually be able to sit in that chair.
Well, maybe that's it. I just think it's the fact that Jack is so ginormous.
I know he's huge. He's
and
huge.
Holt's not overly tall.
Not overly tall. Not an overly tall man.
No.
But really good actor.
And I also love the way he delivered this line here. Nothing I can think of.
No. Nothing
and
I can
then
think of.
cut to Darla's big pregnant belly.
Yep.
Now this, I had Stuart build me a piece of the edge of the roof that she could sit on, and I found myself in trouble when I turned around because she couldn't get up from the edge of the roof. If you saw her get off this thing, you would see that it was only 4 feet long. So to disguise the fact that there was no ledge there, when I turn around here coming up, I start on the big sign and tilt down from it so that it disorients you for a second. And actually turns out to be what I think is quite a good shot coming off that sign. See, there's the ledge there. But there is no ledge, so I'll start up here and come down. You'll never notice that she didn't jump off a ledge somewhere over there.
Now, that sign was also in another movie, was it not?
I can't.
This building, in fact,
I know. It
was shot at Blade Runner, I believe. In fact, I don't know if they actually shot on these buildings, but they replicated them. They were replicants of the buildings in Blade Runner.
Nicely done.
I just thought this was such a beautiful location. It's downtown LA. The sign says the Rossmore Hotel, and Ross made sure he got what was it called? It's
Never.
the Rossmore. Is that what it is?
I thought so. Rossmore or Roslyn?
Roslyn.
Roslyn.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
The Roslyn Hotel. And he made sure he got Roslyn in because Ross's wife is named Lynn. So Ross and Lynn are up there.
Now, see, this is one of my favorite shots in the entire show.
It's not a terrible shot.
I love this shot.
It's a steady
as
cam
soon as
shot.
she comes around and splitting it in a 50-50, a really wide 50-50. I just thought that was really pretty.
Thank you.
And also showed the distance, not only geographical but emotional between them. And as Angel approaches, Darla goes right past him. I just thought...
Yeah, everything
thought it
that's
was
moving
really-
here on the Steadicam, that was one long master. And every time we pop into a closer shot, that's the coverage. But I tried to stay in that master as much as I could.
It was a beautiful shot.
Thank you. It was a great night. It got quite foggy, and all that blue light that you see behind Darla are our BB lights on the ground, just firing up into that fog to give it that effect. I thought Julie was great in the scene.
Yep.
I mean, it's always hard. You climb up to this building in this disgusting part of downtown LA where the Skid Row people are, throwing their feces at you, and they're trying to act. And we went up on this building, and suddenly we were in another time. It was it was not as magical as when we shot at the Griffith Observatory, but it was pretty close.
I won't even be able
That was for Are You Now?
Yeah, that was for
I want to remember.
Julie's great in this scene. David's great in this scene. It's lit great. I like the scene a lot.
And you wrote and directed it. So
Well,
hey, there
I
you
really
go.
did. Here's Andy popping up into frame, which just makes me laugh.
Yeah.
I have no idea what he was doing down there, but I'm like, wouldn't it be funny if he just popped up into frame? Especially after this big, I sort of have to take the piss out of the big
Yes, out of
crying
the big
jag
epic.
before
The booth Simonized.
Lauren, what do you want to see?
getting ready to
Reopen
Caritas. And here's a directorial mistake.
Is and will always be a sanctuary. And that is, if some people ever face
I never got a close shot of this guy.
Yeah,
Of
you
this
never,
demon.
Yeah, you never
And
got
it would have
covered.
been nice to have had a little bit of coverage to pop in a little bit closer to this demon. Although I think it works, but it just would have been nice to have had something
Yeah.
not unlike
carnage-free Caritas.
this shot coming up. If I had something like that,
Yeah.
that was the reverse on that demon,
Yeah.
it probably would have been good. Because right now he just looks like a burn victim. You know what I mean? It's like, you're not doing the repairs because...
Well, you can tell his eyes are yellow.
No, and you get him later in Sejan's place.
yeah.
But this guy was really funny, and actually, as he's getting the bum's rush, when he's saying, I'm union, you got to pay me for the full day, all that stuff was stuff he ad-libbed that I just thought was so funny. So I kept that in the show. Back up on the roof.
You won't let me hurt it.
I wish I had them hold a beat before she started delivering her line. I was really running out of time here, and so tried to play this all in one shot, which, in fact, I think it is. Where we come down to this, into, kind of a nice composition with her here.
Right, and follow her down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
carrying her back.
Is it safe?
It's all one shot.
I'm sure by the time we get here, it'll be safe as houses.
Okay.
Gun getting smacked on the head, or slapped in the face.
Nope, still not working.
Okay.
Setting up the fact that the mystical
Barrier is
thing.
still down.
And it's all a big, it's all a big red herring. because we think he's not going to get it up in time, or he will at the last minute and save everybody, and in fact, it's got nothing to do with that. This is a continuation of that first shot that came down and found them over at that railing. I just carried her back, and then he joined her here. And it would have been nice to have had some kind of coverage on this moment between them, but Rob Kroll helped me with a big music cue sting here at the end.
You got something?
Yes, I believe I do. I have to.
Once I figured, when I was writing the script, once I figured out this moment where Lila discovers that the prophecy says there will be no birth, only death, suddenly I knew how to write this script.
Yeah, I remember you were stuck on that point, and then.
Well, I didn't really have an Act 2 break.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, because Darla going into premature labor isn't really an Act 2 break,
Right.
but setting up that something's going to die is, and that there's not going to be a birth. And it also really informs the second half of the story, which is, will this baby survive?
Right.
So we're not thinking it's going to be about Darla's survival.
Right.
We're thinking it's going to be about the baby's survival.
Right.
So that worked for me. And also, again, it's one of our prophecies that is next to worthless.
Hey, all our prophecies come true, just not in the way that you think they will.
Yeah, but, you know. Which
you
means
know.
they're going to come true in the way you think they will. Because they never come true in the way they say they are. I really like these two together. To me, this is like a Charlie's Angels act break, though.
I know.
You know what I mean? It's like, I mean, the idea is good, but just sort of that look on her face. This may be my favorite scene. And in fact, this scene, the idea for this was Mayor Smith's.
Oh.
She came up with the thought of Holtz having to kill his that Angelus and Darla turned one of his kids, which I think works so great. And I just love everything about the way this is lit. You know, the sun, you know, you get the feeling of the sunlight. And one thing that we've often had trouble with in the past is really creating
Delineating,
a clear line of demarcation between sun and not sun. And there you really get it. You know, there's that very bright light there. As Holtz gets up here, I think I'm shooting at 40 frames, which is people may have noticed I do enjoy a little slow motion. But, you know, to me, it really, it works great here. He picks her up, and we're hearing everything at real time, but he's just moving slightly slow so that her skirts are thrashing, and when she's punching and yelling and kicking and screaming, it sort of just adds kind of a quality to it. This shot here is the very first thing I shot for this episode. When they were shooting exteriors for episode 18, I had to go out where they were shooting Holtz stuff and shoot Holtz throwing his daughter out into the sun. And I hadn't written the script yet.
Right, right. And wasn't there some debate on whether she would say daddy or not?
Well, I shot a version where she did.
Yeah. It was I'm sorry, it was too. It was way too.
It was too much.
Yeah.
It made her arch, too.
Yeah.
Which I thought was not great.
Yeah.
I really love Cordelia smacking.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite shots in the movie.
A few more steps, that's it.
Here's a cool cut coming up that I really like that Mark Goldman did. He cut out of this master here and cut to this. And then back to this, which I thought worked. It doesn't actually quite match, but it matches emotionally. I mean,
exactly.
it works.
It drives the
doesn't
urgency
bump
forward.
You're welcome. You gave us quite a
you.
spiel.
So, I have more exciting things to say. Julie Benz, I love.
Yeah.
Scary thing and all.
I killed her, and she was very sad that I had to kill her, but she understood completely, and she thought it was a beautiful death.
Yeah.
So she was quite happy about that, but sad at the same time.
Yeah.
She's in a lot of pain.
Here was the thing: I wasn't sure I was going to be able to get past the censors. I knew that the blood on the
Blood
chair.
on the chair, yeah.
Yeah. I just felt you needed something there to visually ratchet up the urgency of what was going on. Another flopped shot coming up,
Angel.
where when Angel comes over, the shot of Darla's flopped. She was looking the other direction.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh, I didn't know that. And we had to reshoot this chair, didn't we? Because the first time it didn't really look like blood.
No, it didn't work at all.
Yeah, so
So that was
second
a
time.
second unit chair
Yeah,
shot.
that was a really gory chair.
Again, on the day that I shot the Sejan chamber scene, I had to shoot this. I had no time to do anything. So I said, you'll be sitting in a chair with your back to them, and you won't move, which will be really powerful and also easy for me to shoot. And actually, I think it actually does work really well.
Yeah, it does. And this has one of my favorite lines of any Angel episode in it, which is, I've got mouths to feed, and children, and a family. I've got mouths to feed, and a family. I just
Some
love
of them
that
have mouths,
line.
too.
Some of them have mouths, too.
Yeah, I think I added that on the day.
I love that line.
This is Lauren's room.
And immortal, so that,
Commentary for the blind.
Baby.
Again, the idea here is she's going to lose the baby. She's going to lose the baby. All is lost. All is lost.
Mm-hmm.
So just really every scene in this act is about that, except, of course, holds his flashback.
Right.
No.
But that's about him losing his baby, so thematic.
Yeah, it's true.
I'm not sure there's anything we can do.
You want to give every character something interesting to do in every episode, and it's difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And clearly in some big mythology episode like this, that's really about Angel and Darla, the other characters are going to service the function of illuminating what's happening with those two.
Mm-hmm.
What about us?
But there is a thing in this scene that I really like. Gunn didn't get a whole lot
Yeah.
to do in this episode, except I gave him this speech here where he was the contrarian.
Well, I really liked that also because it coincided with episode with that old gang of mine.
Boy, does everyone have to mention that crappy episode?
I know, but it brings it back to the fore that Gunn is not used to dealing politely with demons.
Yeah, and also, he's going to be the guy who's like, just, back off. I mean, here's a guy who killed his own sister when he had to do it.
Exactly.
So he's going to be asking the hard questions. And in fact, he might not be wrong.
No, and that's what I loved so much about this was everything he said I agreed with. Or everything he said I agreed with,
Yeah.
and then I completely disagreed as well.
Right.
And I love it when that happens, when I can see both sides perfectly clearly.
Yeah, I just really liked Jay in this moment.
Yeah.
It was good. You want to give him something to do. Really, the person who has the least to do in this episode is probably Cordelia.
Yeah.
Damned honest.
And everyone's saying, well, how come Fred knows about C-sections? Is she suddenly a doctor? Why does she know everything? I'm like, well, I know about
C-sections.
I know about C-sections. I mean, yeah, she's smarter than I am, and I wrote it. So, shut up. Is my feeling.
There's the reply again.
That's right.
That's the dealing with criticism part. Shut up.
This was there's a moment here in this scene where she takes Angel's hand and puts it on her pregnant belly and says, "My boy, my darling boy." And she first says it to Angel and she finishes it by I think touching her belly. Because that's a thing that Darla calls Angel. And that's a thing I had her do while we were shooting. It wasn't in the script. I just thought, oh, shit. Doesn't she have to say that because she's about to die?
And this was also the first time
I think that's the first
I'm a stickler for this kind of thing because he used to be the script coordinator, but this was the first time she referred to it as he.
Yeah.
And I through the upcoming episodes that had Darla in it, whenever she talked about the baby, I was always very adamant that she called it or that or this because
Angel actually says that in the scene.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
No, I knew we could pay it off later if we kept that distance. So I was very anal about that.
I thought they were both very good in this.
Yes.
In this scene together. Julie's the kind of actress who walks on the set without any makeup because her feeling is, I should look a little tired. And of course, a lot of actors don't understand. Well, it helps when you're Julie Benz, but she couldn't possibly look more beautiful.
I know.
And she did the same thing in Darla, in the scene at the end of Darla, where she's begging him to turn her back into a vampire. She doesn't have a bit of makeup on. She's the most radiant, luminescent thing I've ever seen.
Well, it helps when you have skin like that.
I'm just
Look
saying,
at that.
it doesn't
Wow.
hurt. So again, completely running out of time.
Best to just stay.
I had all this dialogue to cover, so I thought I'll just drift around with the camera and just get it,
And Darla just need a little time alone.
which I think works sufficiently. However, it would have been nice, because the sets are never the way I thought they were when I get there. I've planned a thing out in my head, and it would have been nice if I could have picked up Lauren, standing and turning, and there's holes.
Right.
But instead, we sort of see him entering, which is fine. It works okay.
Worked for me.
And I also love the look that Keith gives Lauren here. Just
I know.
so you're green and have horns. You will die shortly. Which is a thing I sort of...
I like that little eye dip he does. He's just sort of measuring him as he walks away.
I sort of reprise that with Connor later in episode 21, where he's just giving Lauren the evil eye. And that I love this because Holt's out of focus in the background.
See?
And we come around and he starts to hum along. And he's obviously reading Holtz because Holtz is humming the lullaby that he sang to his daughter. So here we were shooting at 24, and now I'm ramping the camera to 120.
I loved how that went.
So by the time they go past camera, I'm up to full speed, and this thing comes down in slow motion. And then we actually see the grenade come down, and as luck would have it, we see the pin come out of the grenade.
Yep.
And then we cut to the giant Mike Gaspar explosion, which is great. It took hours to set this up. I think we shot this at 3:30 in the morning. We had 4 or 5 cameras going, and we blew the shit out of Caritas.
Yeah.
So we come back into here, and I cut a bunch of lines out of this scene because they were just sort of standing around yammering while the building was burning, which seems silly, actually. But when I was shooting this, sort of the gang is furiously trying to bust a hole through the wall, and Darla and Angel are having this weird, almost quiet moment together. And Julie and David were saying to me, it seems odd that we'd be sort of zoning out, staring at each other, saying, you know, are you okay? We killed people.
I can't believe it was Holtz.
Yeah, and I told them, look, I'm going to drop out the sound in the background, and we're going to be in your heads. It'll be fine. And I think, in fact, it works great.
Yeah.
I know.
She's starting to realize that murdering people not that funny. And this thing with
I love the Buddha head.
Rhino and Buddha head was a thing.
I love the rhino and the Buddha head.
That was the thing I added on the set.
Because
they were there.
That makes it for me. I love that they're bashing in a wall with a Buddha head. I just couldn't be happier.
And a
about
rhino.
that.
Don't forget the rhino.
Well, the rhino's good, but I think the Buddha head with the whole, pacifistic,
Right, the whole Buddha of it?
Exactly, the whole Buddha of it, smashing him into a wall.
When we come back
that
into, see, Angel starts to break the wall, and then when we come back into Caritas, I will point out here that there is not a movie light to be found in this shot.
Really?
It's all completely lit by the stage fire.
Really?
All that fire is the only thing lighting the scene.
Oh, phenomenal.
Which, of course, I have nothing to do with that. That's Ross Berriman saying, how about if we just light it this way? Okay, so we built this wall here in this alley to match the wall on the stage, so it looks like they're coming out of Lorne's. We had rain going, which was a thing I was very insistent about.
The only problem is what you see there is Lorne grabbing a piece of cardboard to hold over his head so his makeup doesn't wash off.
Yes, that's right. And I actually think it's a great character moment.
I do
Because
too.
I believe Lorne would do that, but Andy needed to do that so that the green didn't start pooling out into the alley.
Yes. And I also really liked this with Fred there. It really, I got the Virgin Mary imagery.
We have
there.
some more Christian imagery here.
Yeah.
Now, the reason Fred is in the scene was because I didn't want Angel or Darla to cry. Because it felt that would feel
too much.
It would feel pathetic and maudlin.
Yeah.
But I wanted somebody there who could represent the tears and who could represent the audience, which is why I put Fred into the mix. So she can actually do this as she's doing. When we got there, and also I wrote it so that Fred could be holding this coat over Darla so that there's not rain falling on her. Well, that looked ridiculous. So I just sort of had her put the coat over her head, and suddenly she did look like the Virgin Mary. So while I would love to take credit for this Christian imagery at this virgin birth, it was a fluke. Now, I realized it as it was happening, and, I certainly milked it. But I thought it worked kind of well.
Yeah.
And the other thing about this scene was the rainmakers and everything else were so noisy. The rain was so loud that every line of dialogue in this scene was looped later on an ADR stage. All her entire speech here.
Pain.
And it's interesting. Normally I hate that. Here I think it works. I don't think you notice that it's a loop quite so much. And also it gives it a kind of strange studio intimacy between them that you wouldn't have if it were more realistic. And she had to speak like this to be heard above the rain.
Right.
So it actually works for me.
It's the one good thing we have.
And coming up, the entire reason for this story, which is her staking herself.
The only good thing.
And also, you really don't need Angel to cry because the rain is giving that effect.
Yeah.
It's giving you the effect of tears.
And the hand, him holding her hand.
Him holding her hand is key for me.
Right.
Because when she stakes herself, her hand goes to dust while he's still holding it, which is sort of a callback to the second invasion of the Body Snatchers, when Donald Sutherland goes to Brooke Adams and tries to gather her up, and she just falls apart and crumbles in his fingers. And to me, that was the most devastating thing. That baby's not really there, by the way.
That's a CGI baby right there.
No, it's not a CGI baby.
Well,
it's a real baby.
It's green screened in.
It's green screened in into a crane shot, which I thought was rather impressive.
I thought so too.
Again, Holtz obviously would have gotten to them and killed them had he not been moving in slow motion. So lucky for them.
Lucky for them, he was ramped down. So, or ramped up.
To me, shooting in this alley was just tremendous fun. It was a very clean alley, and it was not like Piss Alley.
No.
This was, it's not a real alley. It's really part of a chemical company. So it's not used by people as a toilet. Here I shot all this stuff at a 45-degree shutter.
And that's a rubber baby that he's got.
That
in his
is a rubber
arms right
baby.
there.
That was a rubber baby.
That was a rubber baby. That's a rubber
That's
baby.
a rubber baby. I don't think you notice it so much.
No, I didn't notice at all.
But a lot of these shots, not this shot here, was shot at a 45-degree shutter, and what it does is it lets light into the camera, and here as well, at a different rate of speed, which kicks up all that water and almost makes it look like snow. It's the Gladiator Saving Private Ryan effect.
Right.
But since it's not, I wanted it for the water, not because I was going to do some big shaky cam fight. And I thought actually it just made everything more epic.
And here comes my favorite shot in the entire show. After Angel sees that his getaway is being blocked by the rubber-headed guys, Holtz lets him go through. And I told Tim, please, oh please, will you milk this shot for every single frame you can get out of it, which is Angel walking past Holtz and his eyes never leaving Holtz.
This shot?
Yeah, that shot right there. I adore that shot. And Tim milked every single frame out of it.
There was nothing more.
Yeah.
That was all there was. I really enjoyed doing something like this where the big finale, the big climax of the show, there's really very, very little dialogue. And the whole standoff between Angel and Holtz without them actually saying anything, allows the viewer to interpret what's really going on between them. Hopefully we've set it up sufficiently that, really what I want you to feel like is, oh look, Holtz is doing the thing that Angel could not. He's showing mercy. And then we discover, no, in fact, things are going to get much, much worse. Which I think is cool. Wait, those aren't my names. Is that your name, Mare?
Those aren't my names.
Okay. Should we talk through the credits? Because
we can do that.
No one watches the credits. We could probably say.
Yeah.
We could probably.
Well, wait. Here comes. There's my
name.
name.
Oh, what? That was your name?
Yeah, that was my name.
Okay.
So we
Rob
talked through
Kral,
my name.
obviously brilliant
Amy
composer. Amy Britt. Are we gonna read? We can read.
We can.
Ending credits for the blind.
Okay. Ready?
see-
Here we go. Production coordinator Elise Ramsdell. Oh, see, I'm way too
Shoot.
slow.
No,
Way too slow.
I don't think anyone really cares about these people.
No. There's Rob Hall.
Okay, he's cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Arg.